May 12th, 2017. A nurse is about to check a patient's blood test results when, click, nothing happens. The screen flashes red. Oops, your files have been encrypted. But here's what she don't know yet. At this exact second, 47 other hospitals are seeing the same message. In Spain, factory robots are freezing mid-assembly. In Russia, government computers are going dark. This isn't a glitch. This isn't an accident. Someone just pulled the trigger on the largest ransomware attack in human history. And the most insane part? The attackers made a mistake so stupid it would save the world. But only if one person noticed it in time. But who was behind this digital apocalypse? Let me ask you something. What if I told you the US government accidentally armed North Korea with the digital equivalent of a nuclear weapon? Sounds impossible, right? Wrong. To understand how May 12th happened, we need to rewind exactly 28 days. April 14th, 2017. A mysterious hacker group calling themselves the Shadow Brokers does something unthinkable. They leak the NSA's most classified cyber weapons onto the open internet. Not just any weapons. These are the digital tools America's top spies use to break into enemy computers. And buried in that leak is something called Eternal Blue, a piece of code so powerful, it's basically a master key that can break into any Windows computer on Earth. No password needed, no login required, no trace left behind. Think about that for a second. Your computer, the one you're probably watching this on right now, could be hijacked in milliseconds, and you'd never even know someone was inside. They could read your emails, steal your files, watch through your webcam, and you'd be completely oblivious. Now, Microsoft actually discovered this vulnerability before the leak went public. On March 14th, 2017, they released an emergency patch, a fix labeled MS17-010. Install this update, and Eternal Blue can't touch you. Problem solved, right? Here's where human nature enters the equation. You know that annoying update and restart notification you always click, remind me later on? Yeah, so did everyone else. By May 2017, only 38% of companies had installed the patch. The other 62%? Sitting ducks, swimming in digital waters with a massive cyber shark circling below. But wait, it gets worse, much worse. See, millions of computers worldwide were still running Windows XP, a system so old, Microsoft officially abandoned it in 2014. No more security updates, no more patches, no more protection. These machines were like houses with the doors removed and a sign saying, "Free stuff inside." Hospitals loved Windows XP because their ancient medical equipment only worked with it. ATMs ran on it. Government agencies in developing nations depended on it. Factory control systems used it, and every single one of them was defenseless. The leaked NSA tools were now floating around the dark web like loaded guns in a playground. Security experts were screaming warnings. IT departments were in panic mode. Everyone in cybersecurity knew something big was coming. The only questions were, who would pull the trigger first, and what would they target? In Pyongyang, North Korea, a team of hackers known as the Lazarus group was asking themselves the exact same questions. And they already knew the answers. They'd been preparing for weeks, carefully crafting their weapon. They took the Eternal Blue exploit and wrapped it in something nasty, ransomware that would encrypt everything it touched and demand payment in Bitcoin. But here's what made their creation truly diabolical. They made it a worm. See, normal ransomware is like a burglar. It needs you to open the door by clicking a bad link or opening an infected email. But a worm is like a ghost that can walk through walls. It finds one vulnerable computer, infects it, then immediately starts hunting for more victims. One infected machine becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 16. The growth is exponential, unstoppable. The North Koreans had their weapon. They had millions of targets. All they needed was the right moment to strike. Why did they choose May 12th specifically? Was it random? Or was there something special about that particular Friday that made it perfect for digital warfare? 7:44 a.m. United Kingdom time. May 12, 2017. At St. Bartholomew's Hospital in London, A doctor is scrubbing in for emergency surgery. Her patient, a 42-year-old father of 3, has a ruptured appendix. Every second counts. Walks to the computer to pull up his medical history, his allergies, his blood type. She clicks the mouse and nothing. The screen flickers, goes black. Then it fills with red and a text in broken English. Oops, your files have been encrypted. Below that, a Bitcoin wallet address. A demand, $300 in cryptocurrency. And a countdown timer that's already ticking. 71 hours, 58 minutes, 43 seconds. The doctor doesn't know it yet, but at this exact moment, the same scene is playing out across all the hospitals in the United Kingdom and half of the critical systems of the world. The ransomware message is almost taunting in its casualness. $300 in Bitcoin. Not $299, not $301, but exactly $300. After 3 days, the price doubles to $600. After 7 days, it claims it will delete everything forever. Your medical records, your test results, that cancer diagnosis you were waiting for. Gone. But here's what made WannaCry different from every ransomware attack before it: the speed. Most cyber attacks spread like a cold, slowly, person to person, requiring human interaction. WannaCry spread like an explosion. The malware was programmed to scan for port 445, the SMB protocol that Windows computers use to share files across networks. Find an unpatched system, infected instantly. Then the infected computer becomes a launcher, scanning for more victims. In large networks, one compromised machine could infect hundreds of others in seconds. It was like watching a digital wildfire jump from tree to tree, except each tree was someone's computer, someone's life, someone's critical data. By 10 a.m., the statistics were staggering. The NHS, Britain's entire healthcare system, was in crisis mode. 47 hospitals completely locked out of their systems. 600 general practitioner offices frozen. By day's end, 19,494 appointments would be canceled. Surgeries postponed, cancer treatments delayed. Imagine your grandmother needs her chemotherapy that day. The machine that could save her life? The screen just says, "Pay us." The backup systems? Also encrypted. The paper records they used to keep? They stopped maintaining those in 2009 to go digital and save trees. Meanwhile, 900 miles away in Madrid, Spain, something even more bizarre was unfolding. At the headquarters of Telefónica, one of the world's largest telecommunications companies, employees weren't just disconnecting their computers, they were literally ripping network cables out of walls. In France, Renault automobile factories ground to a halt. Robotic assembly arms frozen mid-weld. Production lines that hadn't stopped in years suddenly silent. Workers stood around million-dollar machinery that had become million-dollar paperweights. Nissan's Sunderland plant in England, the one that produces 500,000 cars a year, shut down entirely. Russia, despite being a nuclear superpower with sophisticated cyber capabilities, was getting hammered. The Interior Ministry, their equivalent of the FBI, reported over 1,000 computers infected. Even their mobile phone operators were hit. Russian railways had to switch to backup systems. But the real crisis wasn't in hospitals or telecom companies or even government agencies. It was happening in a system nobody was talking about. A system that, if it had fully collapsed, would have affected every single person watching this video right now. FedEx's entire global shipping network was infected. TNT Express's tracking systems went dark. The companies that move our packages, our medical supplies, our food, they couldn't tell where anything was. Think about that. In our just-in-time economy, where stores only stock 3 days of food, where hospitals get daily deliveries of critical supplies, the global shipping network is our circulatory system, and WannaCry was giving it a heart attack. By noon, London time, cybersecurity experts were calling it the worst cyber attack in history, and it was still accelerating. The infection count was doubling every hour. At this rate, by Monday, every vulnerable Windows computer on Earth would be encrypted. Someone, somewhere, needed to find a way to stop this thing. But who? Government agencies were too slow. Antivirus companies were overwhelmed. Microsoft was scrambling to release emergency patches. The hero we needed wasn't wearing a suit in a government building or working in a Silicon Valley office. He was in his childhood bedroom, wearing a Star Wars t-shirt, and he was about to do something that seemed completely insane. The person who would save the world from digital apocalypse wasn't a government super spy or a Silicon Valley genius. He was a 22-year-old college dropout living with his parents in Ilfracombe, a tiny seaside town in Devon, England. Marcus Hutchins. Online, he went by Malware Tech. And on this particular Friday, while Fortune 500 companies were burning through millions in emergency response and governments were convening crisis meetings, Marcus was in his bedroom, eating cold pizza and doing what he did every day, taking apart malware for fun. Yeah, you heard that right. For fun. While you and I might spend our Friday afternoons watching Netflix or scrolling TikTok, Marcus spent his reverse engineering malicious code. Marcus gets a message from a friend in the security community. Are you seeing this WannaCry thing? It's huge. Marcus downloads a sample of the malware. To be clear, this is like voluntarily infecting yourself with a deadly virus because you're curious about how it kills people. Except Marcus knew what he was doing. He ran it in a sandbox, a quarantined virtual computer that couldn't infect his real systems. As the code scrolls across his screen, thousands of lines of cryptic commands, something catches his eye. Buried in the malware's guts is a random string of characters, a weird domain name. It looks like someone fell asleep on their keyboard, but it was there for a reason. The malware was programmed to check if this gibberish website existed. If the domain wasn't registered, if visiting it led nowhere, WannaCry would continue spreading. If the domain did exist, WannaCry would stop. Marcus stared at this for a minute, confused. Why would malware have an off switch that anyone could trigger? Then it hit him. This wasn't meant to be a kill switch for good guys. This was meant to detect security researchers. See, when people like Marcus analyze malware, they run it in sandboxes that simulate the entire internet. These sandboxes typically redirect all domain requests to fake servers, making it seem like every possible website exists. The hackers probably figured, if our malware checks for an impossible domain and finds it exists, we must be in a researcher's sandbox, so stop running to avoid detection. It was actually clever. Except for one massive oversight. Nobody had registered that domain in the real world. Marcus did something that seemed crazy at the time but would turn out to be genius. He went to a domain registrar, typed in that ridiculous string of characters, and bought it. Cost £8.29. That's $10.69 American. He paid with a credit card linked to his PayPal. The transaction took less than a minute. Then he pointed the domain to what's called a sinkhole server, basically a digital black hole that would let him monitor any connections to the domain. He figured, at minimum, he could track how many computers were infected. And what happened next shocked everyone, including Marcus. 11:43 a.m., the domain goes live. 1 minute later, the first infected computer connects to the domain. One more, at 11:45 a.m., 100 connections per second. 11:46 a.m., 1,000 connections per second. And finally, at 11:47 a.m., global WannaCry infections stop spreading. Just like that. The largest cyber attack in history, stopped by a curious kid with $10 and a credit card. Around the world, IT administrators were witnessing a miracle. The red dots on their network maps stopped multiplying. New infections ceased. The unstoppable digital plague had suddenly stopped. But Marcus didn't realize what he'd done. He thought he'd maybe slowed it down or gathered some useful data. It wasn't until his sinkhole server started getting hammered with connections, hundreds of thousands of infected computers calling home to the kill switch domain, that he understood. He hadn't just studied WannaCry, he'd killed it. His phone started ringing. Journalists, government agencies, security firms. Everyone wanted to know who'd registered the domain. Within hours, the British media was calling him an accidental hero. The FBI wanted to talk to him. Microsoft wanted to thank him. But here's what the feel-good headlines didn't mention. Marcus had also just painted a massive target on his back. The hackers behind WannaCry now knew exactly who'd stopped them. They had his domain registration information. They knew where their $10.69 kill switch had come from. Even worse, by stopping WannaCry Spread, Marcus had prevented potentially millions in ransom payments. He'd cost someone a lot of money. And in the cyber underground, that's the kind of thing that gets you killed. But the immediate crisis was over. The worm had been halted. Computers already infected remained locked, but at least the infection wasn't spreading anymore. Microsoft rushed out emergency patches, even taking the unprecedented step of patching Windows XP, a system they'd abandoned 3 years earlier. The world took a collective breath. The digital apocalypse had been averted, but a crucial question remained. Who was behind WannaCry? Who had nearly brought the planet's digital infrastructure to its knees? In the days after the attack, every intelligence agency on Earth was asking the same question. Who did this? The FBI flew in their best cybercrime investigators. The NSA deployed their elite hackers. Britain's GCHQ, Germany's BND, Israel's Unit 8200, everyone was dissecting WannaCry's code like it was an alien artifact. And slowly, patterns began to emerge. The first clue was the random-looking domain name wasn't random at all. When security researchers mapped out where infected computers were calling from, they noticed something odd. The heaviest concentrations weren't in rich Western countries with lots of computers. They were in Russia, Ukraine, India, and Taiwan. But there was one glaring hole in the infection map, a country-shaped blank spot where almost no infections occurred. North Korea. It's like finding a murder scene where everyone's covered in blood except one person who's mysteriously clean. Suspicious doesn't begin to cover it. There was a second clue, the code itself. NSA analysts found 67 lines in WannaCry that were identical. Not similar, identical, to code used in the 2014 Sony Pictures hack. Same variable names, same function calls, same comments in the code, including typos. The probability of this being coincidence? About the same as winning the lottery while being struck by lightning during a shark attack. The Sony hack, that was proven to be North Korea's Lazarus group, the regime's elite cyber warfare unit. But here's the smoking gun that sealed it. Linguistic analysis. The ransomware note, "Oops, your files have been encrypted," was written in 28 languages. 27 of them were clearly Google translated, full of grammatical errors and awkward phrasing. But the Chinese and Korean versions? Perfect. More specifically, the Chinese version used simplified characters common in mainland China, not the traditional characters used in Taiwan or Hong Kong. And the Korean? It used specific terminology and phrasing common in North Korea, not South Korea. It's like finding a note at a crime scene written in a Boston accent. It narrows things down pretty quickly. December 19th, 2017. Thomas Bossert, Homeland Security Advisor to the President, publishes an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. The headline, "It's official, North Korea is behind WannaCry." The United Kingdom's National Cybersecurity Center agrees. So does Canada, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia. For the first time in history, the world's major powers unanimously blamed a nation-state for a global ransomware attack. And not just any nation. One of the world's most isolated, impoverished regimes had somehow brought the world to its knees. The U.S. Department of Justice even has names. Park Jin-hyuk, age 34, a programmer working for North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau. They release his photo, his aliases, even his email addresses. In September 2018, they indict him on charges related to WannaCry and other attacks. Of course, Park is safe in Pyongyang, far beyond the reach of American law enforcement. The indictment is symbolic, a name and shame tactic. But the message is clear. We know it was you. North Korea, predictably, denies everything. A spokesman for their Ministry of Foreign Affairs calls the accusations absurd, insisting that North Korea would never engage in such cybercrimes. They claim it's all a conspiracy to justify more sanctions against their peaceful nation. Nobody buys it. But here's what should really terrify you about this revelation. WannaCry was a failure. A complete, utter failure. The attackers collected only $140,000 in ransom, pocket change in the cybercrime world. Meanwhile, they caused an estimated $4 billion in damages. That's 28,571 times more damage than profit. It's like robbing a bank for $100 and accidentally burning down the entire city in the process. And that's when security experts realized something chilling. What if WannaCry wasn't really about money? What if it was something else entirely? Think about it. North Korea's previous cyber attacks were surgical, precise. They stole exactly what they wanted: money from banks, data from corporations, secrets from governments. But WannaCry was chaos, indiscriminate, sloppy. It hit Russia and China, North Korea's only allies, harder than it hit the United States. By the way, 3 months after saving the world, Marcus Hutchins was arrested by the FBI. Not for WannaCry, for completely unrelated malware he'd allegedly created when he was 18. The same guy who'd stopped the worst cyber attack in history was facing 40 years in federal prison. He eventually pled guilty to reduced charges and got time served. But the irony was lost on no one. The hero who'd saved billions in damages was treated like a criminal. Anyways, some experts now believe WannaCry was a test, a proof of concept. North Korea was demonstrating that they could weaponize American cyber tools against the entire world. They were showing that a nation with a GDP smaller than Vermont's could bring global commerce to a standstill. And if WannaCry was just a test, what comes next? Since 2017, North Korea's cyber army has grown from 1,800 to over 7,000 hackers. They operate from China, Malaysia, Russia, anywhere but North Korea, making them harder to track and stop. Their new weapons don't have kill switches. They don't announce themselves with red screens and ransom notes. They're quiet, patient, designed to infiltrate and wait. Intelligence agencies have detected North Korean malware in power grids, water treatment facilities, nuclear plants, and financial systems worldwide. It's not active yet. It's just sitting there, waiting for someone in Pyongyang to give the order. But here's the darkest irony of all. Remember that $140,000 in Bitcoin the hackers collected? At today's prices, it's worth $8.7 million. And it hasn't moved. Not a single transaction. The wallet addresses are just sitting there, dormant, like sleeping volcanoes. The hackers are still out there, still waiting, still watching. So if you want to know how the Eternal Blue exploit got leaked and the NSA got hacked, make sure to check out our video about shadow brokers, the group that did it.